What's up YouTube? My name is David Warren and welcome back to this week's video. Today I want to talk to you about, is it worth it to be a CRNA? I am a nurse practitioner and I'm currently in CRNA school, so I can't really answer definitively because I'm not a CRNA, but from the outside looking in, I want to talk to you about, is it worth it to go to anesthesia school to be a CRNA? Let's jump right into it. If you're new here, consider subscribing. This channel is all about being a CRNA student and being a nurse practitioner. The first point I want to make to you is it worth it to be a CRNA? Yes. And number one, the patients. And I want to tell you a little more about that. So as a nurse practitioner practicing in emergency medicine, oftentimes you're caring for 7 to 8 patients at a time. And even if you're a nurse practitioner in either critical care, so in the ICU, you're covering a 15 to 20 bed unit, you have multiple patients, or if you work in primary care, you're covering 20 patients a day, sometimes multiple patients at a time. All of that to say, as a nurse practitioner, you're caring for a lot of patients at one time, usually. And as a CRNA, that's just not the case. You're always going to be caring for one patient at a time. And sure, as soon as you get done with that patient, you may have a break or you may go right into your next case, but you're always going to be taking care of one patient at a time. And I love that aspect of it, because as a nurse practitioner, especially in emergency medicine, I find myself juggling multiple critical care patients at a time. And that can sometimes just get a little bit scary because you're dealing with multiple crashing patients at a time. Who do you go see first? What do you do first? Who do you help out? And that can sometimes get a little hairy. But as a CRNA, you're only going to be caring for one patient at a time. And that means for that one patient, you can devote your 100% attention to their care, and you can make sure that everything is being done appropriately. And as an NP, or even as a bedside nurse in the ICU, if you're caring for 2 patients at a time, sometimes it's hard to juggle your stuff between 2 patients. I'm sure those of you who have been ICU nurses know that even with just 2 patients, sometimes it can be very busy. And it's the same as an NP in either critical care or emergency medicine or even a clinic setting. You're caring for multiple patients at a time, and sometimes that can be challenging. However, of course, caring for one patient at a time can be challenging whenever you're in the OR and you're the only set of hands there besides the surgeon working on the patient. Sometimes it can get a little hairy trying to care for that one patient, and you have to be able to know your resources, call somebody in if you need help. But at the end of the day, you're caring for one patient at a time, and you can devote 100% of your attention to that one patient. And I find that really gratifying and really cool that we can care for one patient at a time and focus all of our attention and our energy on that one patient. The second point I want to make to you, is it worth it to be a CRNA, is the salary. And of course, I want to lead with this, that money isn't everything. Money is not going to buy you happiness. If you're miserable with $50, you're probably going to be miserable with $50,000. Maybe less miserable, but you're still going to be a little bit miserable because money doesn't cure happiness. And I can attest to that. I have been on the poorer spectrum as a nurse and then working my way up to where I am now, or where I was before I went to anesthesia school, working as a travel nurse practitioner, making really good money. Sometimes money brings you temporary happiness, but overall in the long term, money is not going to solve your happiness issue. So I want to lead with that. However, one thing that I do need to mention about, is it worth it to be a CRNA, is the salary. And of course, you're going to be making anywhere from low end, probably $150,000, all the way up to $300,000. And so if you just browse Indeed, I encourage you to just go browse Indeed. That's the range you're going to find, 150 to about 300, maybe more depending on the location. So there are some locations, of course, you're going to make way more. So if you're out in North Dakota, or you're doing locums assignments like I did as an NP, you're going to be making an average of $200, $250-ish an hour doing those gigs. And that's going to come out to well over $300,000 a year. And so that's the cool thing about being a CRNA, is you are extremely well compensated for the work that you do and the care that you provide. And I think that's really necessary, because even now, in the in the pits of anesthesia school, in the depths of anesthesia school, I understand now why CRNAs are so highly compensated, because the material that we're learning, the care that we're going to be providing, those patients are very near the brink of death, and we're bringing them back from that with every surgery. And so you're literally inducing a patient in anesthesia, paralyzing them, intubating them, and managing them through the procedure, and then reversing the paralytic, if there's one there, waiting for them to wake up, extubate or do a deep extubation, and send the patient to the PACU or to the unit. And so it's very high stakes. It's a very high risk. And so I feel like in some regards, I'm going from one high risk specialty to another high risk specialty, because emergency medicine is high risk. When you have patients that come into the ER, they don't have a diagnosis stamped to their forehead. You don't know what's going on with them. It's your job to figure that out. And things in that hectic environment can be missed. And so ER providers are well compensated, just as anesthesia providers are very well compensated for the work that they do and for the care that they provide. And so average salary probably in the lower 48 in a W-2 fully employed position, depending on the location, you're going to average, like I said, 150 to 300. If you start doing travel gigs like 1099 or locums gigs for CRNA, you could make more than that. If you work consistently, you could well make over $300,000. And again, salary is not everything, but salary is a big portion of being a CRNA. You're well compensated for the work that you provide and for the care that you provide. So that's the second reason. The third reason is the potential for time off. And I really like this because there are two aspects to it. The potential for time off. If you're fully employed, you're W-2, you work through a physician group or through a hospital company, you're probably going to be working either 7 on or 7 off, or 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off, or some flavor of that. You're going to be doing an on-off schedule, and so you're going to get a pretty good chunk of time off, and that is good, especially for someone like me who likes to travel and who doesn't like to work. I like to not work more than I work, and so combined with the pay and the time off, you really have the best of both worlds. You can afford to work less, and then you get the time off to go do things that you want to do. Now, the other side of that is the 1099 position or the locums positions, much like I did as a nurse practitioner. If you haven't seen my other videos, go check those out. I have some videos up of when I was a travel nurse practitioner working in Alaska. I would work for 1 to 2 months and then take 1 to 2 months off for leisure travel. And that's the cool thing about being a CRNA is you can do that very thing. You can go on locums assignments and you can work for a few weeks to a few months. And then being a 1099, being self-employed or having your own business, you get to dictate your own schedule. You get to say, hey, I'm available here, here, and here. This is when I can work. If you want it, let's do it. If you don't, I'll find somewhere else. And oftentimes you get to dictate your own schedule like that. And so you can work a month on and then take a month or 2 off and then go back to a different place and work for another couple months and then take some more time off. And so the potential for time off is really just endless, and that's a huge factor of why I think it's worth it to be a CRNA. The fourth reason as to why I think it's worth it to be a CRNA is the job prospects, and this is something that I want to kind of compare and contrast with being a nurse practitioner. So with being an NP, you know, a lot of my other videos have been geared towards why I've left the NP profession as a full-time nurse practitioner. I'm still working some as a nurse practitioner, but it's not something that I'm ever going to go back to and dedicate like a full-time job to. It's just not what I want to do. Part of that is because there are minimal jobs available. The nurse practitioner career, the nurse practitioner field, the profession is wildly oversaturated. It's wildly oversaturated. And that's in part because everybody wants to go to NP school and everybody can go to NP school because the barrier to entry is significantly low. You basically have to be a living, breathing soul to go to nurse practitioner school. And once you get in, it's pretty easy to get through, pass your boards. Then the problem ensues. Where do I find a job? Now, all of that to say, there are jobs available. You can find a job as a nurse practitioner. However, it's extremely difficult in some locations. However, as a CRNA, it's pretty easy to find a job because there are openings everywhere. Again, I would point you to my friend Indeed.com. There are jobs all over for CRNAs. You can basically name the place you want to go and you can get a job there. And this is another area I want to kind of compare and contrast NPs and CRNAs. So in CRNA school, by the time you're getting to the end of your clinical portion, most everybody is being offered a job wherever. Going through your clinical rotations, you're going to get offered jobs. And so I've just done some very basic browsing on the internet, different programs, the statistics that CRNA programs are required to post. One of them being employment rate after graduation at like a 6-month interval. And I would say 100% of the programs I've seen at a 6-month interval, they have a 100% employment rate. It would be impossible to find that for nurse practitioner schools. There's not a 100% employment rate after going to NP school. And part of the reason to that is the significant number of graduates that each profession is graduating. CRNAs are graduating a much lower rate of graduates than nurse practitioners. And part of that is that barrier to entry. So again, to go to CRNA school, you have to have ICU experience, you have to take the GRE, you have to interview, you have to go to an in-person, on-campus program. There are no online programs. So the barrier to entry is much higher because you have to jump through some more hoops to get there. And that in turn provides more jobs because you're not oversaturating the field with hundreds of thousands of graduates that are just waiting for any job to pop up and taking low salary jobs. You kind of see where I'm going with that. So the job prospect for CRNA is very good and probably not going anywhere for the foreseeable future. So is it worth it to be a CRNA? I think it is. Those are my takes on it. Again, I'm not a CRNA right now. I'm in CRNA school, but from the outside looking in, those are the reasons I think it is good to be a CRNA. If you're a CRNA watching this, comment below. Let me know, is it worth it to go to anesthesia school? If you have any questions, comment below. I'd love to answer them. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.